It is believed that around 500 BC, Babylonians and likely earlier other civilizations began making calendars by simplifying the constellations along the ecliptic into 12 equal parts of 30 degrees each, what we know of today as the Zodiac wheel. However, the constellations vary in size and are not equal in the number of degrees they take up along the ecliptic. Larger constellations like Virgo take up over 45 degrees, while smaller ones like Cancer span less than 20. The simplified calendar and astrological system are the early roots of where we get our modern-day astrological charts of 12 equal signs, each given an even 30 days of the year for our sun signs. For instance, Aries is between March 21st and April 19th. However, in truth, Aries is much smaller than this, and the sun is in Aries for less than 30 days. So why did these ancient civilizations create such a simplified system if it took away from the actual sky? It's likely because they wanted to time seasonal events more consistently, such as the beginning of spring. This makes sense for the time because so much of life depended on the seasons, particularly for agriculture and travel. Where that leaves us today, unfortunately, is with an astrological system that no longer reflects the actual sky. So the question is, why do we still use this simplified system? Around 200 AD, an astrologer by the name of Ptolemy proposed the idea of fixing the signs around the seasons, so that every spring equinox, the sun is at 0 degrees Aries in the astrological chart. The purpose of this was to solve a problem for astrologers at the time known as precession, whereby the sun does not originate to the same exact position in the sky every year. So what might mean the start of spring when the sun enters Aries one year may not years later. The change is very subtle, about 1 degree every 72 years. However, over a long enough period of time, this change can be drastic. To solve this problem, Ptolemy proposed the idea of fixing the chart around the seasons, instead of the ever-changing sky. This idea was adopted by the establishment through the Middle Ages in Europe, and now is what almost everyone in the West uses today. The problem for us today is that 1 degree every 72 years of variation has now left us with almost a full sign difference from the actual sky. In other words, what seasonal or tropical astrology says is a sun in Aries during spring is actually a sun in Pisces. Since 2016, the worldwide Google search term for Sidereal Astrology, the name of the astrology that references the stars, has been on a steady uptrend. It appears more and more people are discovering this form of astrology for the first time, a definite trend shift from previous years. However, this doesn't completely solve the problem. Most so-called sidereal astrology systems don't use the actual constellations either. The vast majority still use an even 30 degrees, like the Vedic astrologers. A small but growing number of sidereal astrologers do use the natural uneven constellations. This form of astrology is sometimes called astronomical astrology or true sidereal astrology. Most of these systems also take into account Ophiuchus, also known as the 13th sign, a constellation which passes through the ecliptic that was omitted from the original 12 zodiac signs during the Babylonian and pre-Babylonian simplifying of the zodiac. After all, 13 does not divide so evenly for calendars and charts like the number 12. Luckily, the advent of technology has given us planet charting software in the palm of our hands. Apps like Star Chart and computer programs like Stellarium allow us to see the sky exactly as it was at the time of our birth. I highly recommend downloading one of these softwares and seeing the sky as it was on your birthday. If you would like to see your planets in an astrological chart, below is a birth chart calculator that uses the actual constellations in the sky. It takes the midpoint, or halfway point, between constellations along the ecliptic as the boundary. This reflects the actual location of the planets as we would see them in the visible sky. Keep in mind that many constellations have gaps between them and overlap, so anything within 3 degrees of another sign should be considered a blend of both signs. For an even simpler method, below is a link to the true sidereal sun sign dates, using the same midpoint method as the chart calculator. Again, anything within 3 days of another sign should be considered a blend. And after looking at your sun sign, I highly recommend looking at the rest of your planets with the birth chart calculator. If you resonated from your mainstream sun sign and it's different from your true sidereal sign, there's a high chance one of your personality planets, such as Mercury or Venus, are in the mainstream sign. Happy exploring the wonderful world of true sidereal astrology, a system we have used far longer than these recent simplified systems. If you believe humans derive meaning from the sky longer than the past 3,000 or 4,000 years, then it's easy to see that these recent systems take up just a small blip in the grand scheme of our history, of what we've likely been doing for tens of thousands of years, using the actual visible sky.